It's a pleasure to have you, Uzoma, on the show. We're just speaking about AI just there, and clearly open banking is another place where we can begin to see the impact of technology in our environment here. First of all, maybe your thoughts about the latest in terms of open banking really going to the next level in Nigeria with those guidelines. What do you make of where we are at now?
So open banking, hi Wale, and thanks for having me on the show. Now, open banking is really about weaponizing or scaling the use of API, which are standard protocols in which systems talk to each other. And so today, what we have is, if I want to pull information from, for example, NIBS, which is our Nigerian interbank settling system. We have API, we have like private APIs in which we pull information. So they expose the API. But what open banking is saying is that, listen, if you want to take advantage, if you want to become part of a system in which you can pull information or expose your API and people can use, you have to adopt certain norms, standards, and security. And so, but the essential part of it is that now with open banking, you can actually scale very quickly. But what the exciting part about it, and I hope that is the part where a lot of education is like deployed, is that it now puts power back in the hands of the consumer, because you can't do any of these things without the consent of the customer.
Right.
And that's the exciting part about it.
I think a very important part. But let's talk about how this can help actualize, the hopes of a more cashless economy. Can you just speak to that?
Okay. So today, I think if I to put it in context, you need data, and then from data to information to make decisions. So if we take just simple lending, today, there's not enough information. So like, okay, it's a simple use case. I bank with Bank X for like last 20 years, and Bank X refuses to give me a loan. And then Bank Y is willing to do that, but Bank Y doesn't know me. But with open banking, I can give Bank Y permission to pull all my transaction data from Bank X, and then Bank Y can lend to me. Now, that is possible because I have been actually doing my banking, not cashless, and not by cash, but using the banking system. So this would now encourage people. So if you want to access services, products, incentives, it is important that you don't do your transactions with cash, because with cash you lose data. With cashless, with electronic transaction, your data is captured, which can be used to make informed decisions about you, and you can give that to people and say, here is my data. You have permission to use it, so you can make an informed decision on what I'm requesting from you.
It's an interesting point you're making there. It could be an incentive for more people to go digital and cashless. But how will the issue about the ambiguity around ownership be addressed? Because I think that is one issue that gives some people some concern. What's your view on that?
So, we've made a lot of progress in Nigeria in terms of data privacy. We have in regulation data privacy laws, we have the NDPR as well. And with the operational guidelines of open banking that have been distributed by central bank, it actually states clearly who owns the data, and who owns the data is the customer. And what it says is that, even simple, if I wanted, look, today, we are actually living that whole, like we're actually doing that in Nigeria today. So today, when a customer wants to open an account in Sparkle, I have to, and I need to know who he is. He has the BVN. So I have to ask his permission to access his BVN data from NIBS. And that permission is only for knowing who he is. I cannot now save that information. I will give it to a third party. So it is actually, the guidelines are actually quite clear. Now, these guidelines are very clear for should I say, operators in the financial system that are regulated by central bank. What open banking is saying is that, it is not only for financial institutions, it's a non-financial institution, but it's going to be regulated by the central bank. But in the end, one of central bank's core objectives is to ensure financial system stability, but also to ensure financial inclusion. And so open banking is a segue achieving all that, but also putting controls to make sure that there must be minimum standards to protect the consumer and to ensure trust in the ecosystem.
Okay, so I hear you when you say that the data is owned by the customer, but then some institutions will say, listen, we put in all the efforts to gather that information. So in a sense, shouldn't we at least share ownership to some extent? So I just wanted to, how do you respond to that?
Today, in the end, right, if you're a customer-centric organization, then you know that the activities or the activities or the events created by the customer, it is their own, the transactions are their own. And you are only holding on to that information because you cannot, my question is like, if I bank with you for 20 years, you see all my transactions, know who I am, and I ask you for a simple loan, and you say, no, you don't meet the criteria, that creates angst. And in fact, that's the biggest, outcry of small businesses in Nigeria. They will tell you, I have banked with this organization for so many years, but when I asked for simple 5,000 naira, they tell me that I don't meet the risk acceptance criteria. Meanwhile, there are now organizations, new businesses, new fintechs, new banks who are using, leveraging on technology to say, based on your data, I know who you are and I'm willing to lend to you, but I don't have access to that information. This changes the whole ball game.
I hear you, and clearly these conversations will continue. Thank you so much for joining us today. Uzoma Dozie is the CEO and founder of Sparkle.